Welcome to the Tabletop Gaming Guild podcast. The Tabletop Gaming Guild is all about the experience and memories playing games with friends and families can create.
How fast you can say that without taking a breath.
On this episode, we will be talking about...
Brought to you by the letter L. I'm sorry, Nathan. I had to. Go ahead.
On today's episode, we will be talking about one of the local New Hampshire gaming conventions, Granite State Gaming Summit.
You forgot to introduce yourself.
Oh, yes!
It's like a train wreck. You can't stop watching.
Okay. Just making my editing a little more challenging.
This is not the episode that I'll be editing.
That's for sure.
As always, we have our hosts, Nathan Wilson.
James Olson.
And Dan Regowitz.
I beat you this time.
And I pointed to you to say who to talk, and it worked even though that you can't see who's on the which side of my screen.
For the reference, James is right now on my left, and Nathan's on my right.
Anyways. On this episode, we will be talking about the Granite Game Summit, which is a Nashville-based gaming convention that happens every March, and it's actually a fairly decent-sized convention. They don't post their numbers, but I wouldn't be surprised if they had close to 1,000 people attending. And they usually have small-time designers, a few store owners. Actually, Gil Hova was there.
Oh, Gil Hova. That's cool.
And the Flip This Table group had a reunion podcast
Flip
that
Flurry?
I attended. Yeah, Flip Flurry. I played a couple games with him. I wanted to talk to Gil Hova, but I haven't actually played any of his games. I've always wanted to play the networks, but just haven't had a chance.
So you're speaking of Gil Hova and Flip Flurry.
So they had a Flip the Table reunion podcast that I attended while I was there, and Gil Hova was a guest. And they talked about the Wayne's World VCR game. If you're not familiar with Flip the Table, basically they are kind of a fun nonsense podcast, but they take thrift store games, like really obscure games that you've probably never heard of, that are generally terrible games, and they play them and talk about them and basically just have fun with talking about these silly games.
They do a cool segment, too, which is the one where they do a mechanic and a theme, and they try to make a game. Like, they'll do, like, Warfare and My Little Pony and make a game.
I've actually have listened to a decent amount of their stuff. And even though they discontinued continuous production of their podcast some time ago, this special something is just something that they did on the side or...
Yeah, once a year at the Granite State Summit.
Yeah.
Their stuff is oddly topical because none of their games are relevant to today's audience because it's all like IP games from like the 70s and 80s or before. Their show is actually really funny / entertaining.
And crazy, yes.
And I like to do a nonsense game every once in a while where I don't even know how to spell it, so maybe I won't even try explaining it. Basically, I spent 32 hours in 3 days doing nothing but playing games or doing gaming-related things. So, didn't sleep much.
What was a highlight game for you?
Die Hard.
The Heist, the newest one.
It's got a 3-act format, and it's one versus many. So it's one versus many, 3 acts. In the first act, you have one corner of the board. Then you open it up and flip it, so you have a 2-segment board for the second act. For the third act, you flip it open again, so you have the full back of the board for a large final act. So it gives a nice ramp up. But one of the neatest things I found in this game was the card mechanic for the thieves. It's one player playing Bruce Willis as John McClane, and however many player playing the thieves. Between the thieves, they'll pick 3 cards without being able to talk. There's a minimal amount of knowledge about what cards the other people are playing. But the basic thing you have to understand is you're picking your card not knowing what everybody else is picking. You have just a little bit of information. It'll be 3 cards played, and the actions that you take are based on the card with the middle number. So the highest number and lowest numbered card aren't used for actions. They're used for another mechanic, which is like a lock mechanic. You have a grid of numbers, and if you happen to have played cards in those left and right slots that match up with that grid of numbers, you can start unlocking this very complicated lock. There's rules for that as far as like if they're adjacent, you can get 2 in a turn. If they're not adjacent, you can only pick one of the 2 cards to unlock your lock. So I thought that was pretty neat and unique. And the actions are pretty straightforward. The normal thing you would expect. You can move, you can shoot, you can punch. That part of it is kind of like a nice little simple combat game. You are rolling a dice, but it's pretty you don't care too much whether you succeed or not. It's fun, but it's not high stakes because chances of killing John McClane are really, really low. Every time you hit him, he just discards one card out of his deck. You can only kill him if he gets rid of every single card out of his deck.
So I heard the game was good, but it had issues with replayability.
Yes, the acts are going to be the same. Your goals are going to be the same each time. So, yeah, you probably can only want to play this game 4 or 5 times and you will never want to play it again. But you still can get a few plays out of it. 4
or 5 plays is good for a game, but would you recommend the game?
Yes, I would absolutely recommend this. This is a really fun game. I mean, I don't know how much they're charging for it. Hopefully it's not a large amount, then it's worth getting. I wouldn't pay $100 for this game, but, as long as it's in the $40 range, I'm all okay with that.
So the answer is around $38.
So that's good. Get 4 or 5 players out of that, that's great. And the John McClane player also has a nice little mechanic where they have different decks of cards for each act, and the cards you play in the first act carry over to the next act. So in each act, you're not just thinking about what you want to do, but you want to think about which cards you want to carry over, because all the cards you carry over become more powerful in the second act.
Sounds interesting.
I played a very old thrift store game.
And what was this?
It's called Mutant Chronicles.
Oh my.
Really?
Have you heard of this one?
Might be on the game show, but it probably won't be now.
The full name is Mutant Chronicles Siege of the Citadel.
Okay.
It's one of those games, it definitely needs improvement. I mean, it's an old school game. There's definitely some flaws. Definitely a little clunky in the mechanics. But the fun is there. The excitement's there. And there's some really silly stuff that I don't know why they put it in, but it actually kind of worked. Like, I had 2 characters that I was playing in, and one of whose name was Coral Beach, was the name of my character. A Marine. And his name is Coral Beach. And I had a little cyborg, but the art for it was so funny because it was the first time I saw a cyborg with a really dumb grin.
So since you ruined it for the game that we're going to be doing, I'm going to read off the description. In Mutant Chronicles, players control one of 5 corporations: Imperial, Cybertronic, Mishma, Capital, and Boss. Each player begins with 2 of their unique Doom Troopers, imbued with their corporation's special ability. They make decisions and plan strategies to prevent Dark Legion and its leaders, the Vile Nephirite and Alquai, from conquering the solar system. Each successful mission brings a new one with this modular citadel and events that can help or hinder you in battle. Each promotion gives credits to access more powerful weaponry. Grab a Punisher shortsword and a plasma carbine to make your mark in Mutant Chronicles.
Yeah, it sounds like a bad 80s flick.
I know.
Like Mad Max style. Flash Gordon, I guess, would be closer.
Now, I will say that, the miniatures aren't the best quality in the world, but they're not bad for a game of that age. And they sort of remind me of, like, Games Workshop miniatures.
Yeah, they're nice, solid-looking miniatures. But yes, it's a campaign-based, simple combat game. You play a campaign, you level up your characters afterwards. But one of the interesting things is it's not fully cooperative. You're scoring points, and so you want to get your characters to have the best promotions. And there are some cards that you can, steal promotional points from other players. It's going to get more nasty, and you're going to actually make it harder to win.
Do you know the Mutant Chronicles? The text, font, the graphics, and everything. It looks like it's got completely ripped off of Warhammer.
You're talking about the cover art?
There's some pictures of instruction manual. A lot of the miniatures look like they're Warhammer miniatures. Not quite as good. And, the text is Warhammer text font.
I don't think it's exact, but it's definitely reminiscent of.
Yeah, it's legally distinct, I guess. It does look like they were like, Warhammer, all right, we can't get the copyright. Let's make it Mutant Chronicles.
Oh, man, guys, this is a Richard Borg game.
It is. It actually doesn't look bad. I'm super surprised Nathan played a game that is old that is not bad, necessarily.
No, it was a fun game. Definitely had some clunky things where it's like, you enter a room, And then at the end of your turn, you flip a card to reveal what's in that room. So it's like, okay, I go in this room and I waste the rest of my turn?
There was a game I hated that was like that. I think it was called Level 7.
Oh, that's an awful game.
Every time you go into a room, it's like, flip a card. I don't know. It's a giant-ass alien. I didn't see that in the open corridor.
Yeah.
Guess what you get to do now? Die.
Yeah, and level 7, you can't really damage these. You just have to run away and get them to fight each other.
Yep. Did Dan play level 7 at all?
I did not. No. I don't think I played any one of them because there were multiple games in this series.
I know Nathan gave me the game. I read the rules. I played it at lunch. It was garbage. And one of the people from work was like, this is amazing. So I'm like, here you go. Merry Christmas. And I gave him the game. And he was very happy. Oh. Have you ever played that game, Oregon Trail? Yeah, the card game where you literally just flip a card over and you die or you don't. Like, there's nothing. Just die.
Man, maybe I shouldn't say this because I'm dating myself too much. So I played the original Oregon Trail on Apple IIe at some point in time during my younger days.
Yeah, I did too.
I haven't played the card game, but my understanding is that it's very faithful to the computer game. The computer game was a random fest. At the beginning of the game, you supplied up, and you just hope you picked the right supplies for the RNG that hit your game. Otherwise, you lost wagons, people died of dysentery, or you never made it to Oregon, most of the time.
In Oregon Trail, you get no picking anything. You just get cards, and hopefully you made it. Literally, you just have 0 players, and it'd be the same. Level 7's about the same. Except for fiddly rules and craziness.
Dan, I'm wondering if you could guess how Oregon Trail would be rated.
All right, I'm not going to look this up. Do we want to know its number or its aggregate rating?
What the ranking in BGG is for that?
5,000 on the BGG database.
I'm going 25,000. You higher or lower than that?
I'm going to say that it is higher than or farther away from 1 than 5,000.
Well, I'll give you a little information first. The lowest ranked game on BGG is 18,664. So, with that in mind.
Oh, man. Lowest ranking game on BGG is 18,000 something. Interesting. I guess they don't count all those games that don't have enough ratings to be ranked.
Right.
But it does have a ranking, Oregon Trail. Am I not, right, guys?
Yes, it does have a ranking.
It was sold at Target, so if a game sold at Target, it has a ranking.
Oh, this is true.
Well, I'm completely off, so I'm going to say 12,000.
I'm going to go higher than 12,000.
I'm saying 12,000. So you just 12,001, so it was close.
It is ranked 18,643.
I knew it was like at the top, so it is a garbage game. It's not even a game, it's not even an activity. It just plays itself.
One off from Twister. And Pick Up Sticks.
Pick Up Sticks is a better game than Oregon Trail, the card game.
Thanks for that diversion. Do you have any other first impressions from Granite Game Summit?
I played like 16 games when I was there, so I do have quite a few, but I'll talk about a couple other. Dice Hospital was one I played, but I was somewhat disappointed by it.
Oh.
What Dice Hospital is, it's a hospital management game. You have wards in your hospital. You can add more wards, get specialist doctors, but you're placing your workers on these wards to heal patients, and your patients are dice that are rolled randomly and then drafted. First player will roll these dice and then lay them out on these ambulances in ascending numeric order, and you can choose a ambulance with the sickest patient, but then go first, or you choose an ambulance with the healthiest patient and go last, or somewhere in between. Once you bring these dice into your hospital, you're using your workers to raise the number of pips on the dice until you get it past 6. Once you get it past 6, the patient's considered cured, out of your hospital, you get points. So it's a combination of engine building and worker placement, but I found that on the first turn, I hit on a strategy, and then I didn't have to do any more thinking beyond that. I was just doing the same thing, and just expanding that one strategy the entire game, and I was doing phenomenally well. By the time that game was done, nobody had lost any patients, but I almost had no patients left in my hospital. I cured almost everybody. For that game, it's supposed to be fairly hard to do, but it was too easy to solve, this game.
That's definitely not a game in my area anyway, even if it is good.
It's interesting that you noted that, because I've encountered that before, but I've encountered it most specifically in like games that are centered around drafting, I guess, because you just pick something to draft and then you go with that for like several rounds or several draft picks, and maybe you maximize the value on that, so you switch gears to something else. And a lot of heavier games might suffer from a similar issue where, like, you know, the game's got 6 different paths to victory, but once you pick a path, it becomes obvious what you need to do every turn.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The game does come with optional modules that add events or difficulty, and I didn't get to try those, so perhaps that resolves that, but I can't say because I obviously didn't get to try them.
Ugh. Anyway, not my type of game. Never really can do well in dice drafting games.
The only dice drafting game I've tried even remotely recently was Role Player, and it was okay, I guess, would be my best assessment of it. I would have preferred more player interaction, because the player interaction in that game is just in the drafts section of the game. You pick what die you're going to take into your board, which partially determines player order. And then there's a second draft later where you can pick up a skill or equipment card. That order also comes into play for. And the only thing you're doing is competing with other people for these dice and cards.
Exactly the same in Dice Hospital, yes.
I always get excited with dice drafting games because I think they could do like a really cool one, but every time I play them, it's the same thing. It's just, I don't know. If you're doing a dice drafting game, I would like a lot of player interaction.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, you're rolling chaos cubes, you might as well have a chaotic game.
Absolutely. I've played another game there that Dan can maybe talk about as well as Palo Mountain King.
So I'm the only one that hasn't got to play it yet.
Well, I made some comments about it on our last segment, so why don't you talk a little bit, and then maybe I'll chime in.
So Hollow Mountain King, you're digging through this mountain and hiring on trolls to help you dig through the mountain. As you dig through the mountain, you're revealing resources, you're opening up spaces for mechanic shops or granite halls, you're revealing statues and trying to move those statues onto pedestals and get points for that. This is a game that really surprised me how much you have to think through every action, because there's plenty of resources if you plan right. You can very easily run out of resources and be stuck and have very little you can do. So you really have to think as many turns ahead as you can, plan your resources, how you're going to get your next resource to do your next action. And this is one of those games I played early in the morning. I wish I'd played it later in the day when my brain was a little more active, because I was tired already by the end of this game. But I did enjoy it.
Me and my brother Ken have both played through this game, and I think we're mutually agreed that the coolest part of the game is the resource cascade.
Oh, yeah. So the way the resource cascade works, as you hire trolls, you get to activate them to get resources. But then you build them in a pyramid. And so when you hire your next step in the pyramid, you get to activate all the ones below them to get their resources. But only get the resources if you've used the resources they had previously produced.
I agree with your assessment in that you need to figure out how you're going to maximize your resources until you pick up your next troll.
Yes.
And the trolls that you recruit come as varieties as well. So they come in 3 different levels, 1, 2s, and 3s. If you want to hire a level 2 troll, you got to bribe the 2 level 1 trolls that are beneath them, because the recruitment area of the board is also like in a pseudo pyramid. If you want to hire a level 3 troll, you got to bribe 3 level 1 trolls and 2 level 2 trolls. But there's additional bonuses for recruiting the higher level trolls beyond just that they have more resource icons on them, which is great enough.
Yeah.
I found it to be a puzzle. You have these resources. You're trying to figure out how to dump as many of them as possible. You're trying to take your next troll as late as humanly possible, because as long as you can pull that off, you're doing okay.
Yeah, and desperately trying not to leave yourself in a position where I don't have any resources, I can't afford a good troll, I desperately need something, so I have to take this lousy little troll just to get more resources.
Right. The resources that you bribe the trolls with are generally coins, so getting those coins to get those higher level trolls is relatively important. We also found in our play that so there are certain spots of this board that have a certain like texture to them. So if you build over those spaces, you need green hammers, which is one of the resources in your inventory. These rubble spaces become more dense the closer you get to the center of the mountain. getting a decent number of hammers is pretty important to get closer to the center of the mountain, which is pretty important for the statue and the pedestal scoring.
So, would you guys both recommend the game in the Hall of the Mountain King?
As long as you go in knowing you're going in for a very heavy, thoughtful game. There's a lot of replayability because your strategy is very important, but they have these spells that add a lot of fun elements, and you're going to see just a fraction of those spells in a single game. And the first spells do things like allow you to take a better troll and just swap it in, or allow you to build an extra tunnel and stuff like that, but, they're fun and add a little variety.
The game just came out, too, and it already looks like it has 2 expansions.
One is a solo mode and unique player powers. It was launched on Kickstarter, so it did come out with at least one expansion. If there's a second, I don't know what it is.
The first one is in the Hall of the Mountain King Champions mini expansion.
Yeah, the Champions, the unique player powers, that was possibly a Kickstarter exclusive.
The other one looks a little meatier. It is the same name, but Cursed Mountain.
Yeah, I don't know what else that box includes, but I'm pretty sure that includes the solo rules, among other things.
Looks like it's not released to normal people yet, because there's not very much on there, but it's 20 curse card, 1 prophecy board, 15 dedicated tiles, 8 quake tokens, and 1 campaign ledger. So I guess a small expansion? I'm not sure.
It is smaller. I ordered the game for the store, which is how I got my copy. There's another copy still on the shelf, by the way.
Oh.
And I pre-ordered the expansion at the same time, and it didn't come in with the game, so it's obviously releasing to us at a later date. I think this game's got something going on in it. I don't think it's to my personal taste, but I'm going to give it another play or two before I decide to either keep it or axe it.
So what other games did you play that are notable at Granite State Con?
I played Papillon, the butterfly game.
Is that the one made by Beth Sobel? I have no idea how to spell it.
Yeah, I'm like, say that again? What is this game called?
Papillon.
Yeah, Beth Sobel is one of the artists for Wingspan. I think she's the artist for your game. Who is the designer of your game?
Why are you asking me difficult questions?
Because I can't spell it, so I can't
I can't spell it either.
Okay, so to answer my own question, the artist is not any of those people. So the publisher is Colossal Games, the artist is Whitney Rader, and the designer is J.B. Howell.
All right, since you have it on your screen, tell me how to spell it so I can look it up.
Papillon. Papillon.
The 2019 one?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, looking at something with a butterfly on it, so I'm assuming it's correct.
I think the one I'm thinking about has like a monarch butterfly game.
The monarch butterfly is called Mariposa, and that is Elizabeth Hargrave's next design.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
AEG is putting it out. All right, so talk to us about Papillon. What is this game about besides monarch butterflies? I mean, butterflies.
That is basically what this game is. You're putting butterflies on flowers, and you score by having the most butterflies on flowers. So that's the gimmick of it. The core gameplay is tile drafting. So you're going to have this grid of tiles. First, you'll bid for selection order, and then the person who gets to choose first often will get a row of 4 tiles, but now all that's left is rows of 3 or 2. So the next person generally only gets 3 tiles. Third person gets 2. Last person gets 1, but then they get to draw 1 blindly from the bag. It's Carcassonne style. You're laying out your flowers like you would in your cities for Carcassonne and trying to complete your flower bed. Whenever you complete a bed, you get a butterfly to put on the matching flower color, and then at the end of the game, who has majority on each type of flower gets first, second, third point, and then you also score if you have butterflies in a closed field, and then you also score for your largest completed flower bed.
Okay, so on the Geek, I'm seeing these cool, 3D paper-crafted flowers. Is that actually part of the game?
Yes, it is. And you get little paperclip butterflies.
Be a major factor for me knocking in the game, because that looks so hard to set up every time.
Yeah.
It didn't seem too hard to set up. They were sturdy enough, and you had enough space in the box. You just put the flowers into the box all together.
I don't know. I'm old and impatient, so I don't know if that's going to happen.
But these little paperclip butterflies are the actual issue. You constantly feel like you're going to break them. And in fact, the owner of this game said that he frequently had to glue the butterflies back on. And they even supply extra butterflies because that's a known issue that they've been dealing with.
Have you seen my sausage hand? No delicacy in there.
Yeah, you would not be able to play this.
Thank you for giving me a game that is a solid pass for me.
It's a nice little fun, light game. briefly considered buying it, just, something my mom would like. It's a little too light for me.
Wait for Elizabeth Hargrave game, because Wingspan's awesome, so I can't wait to see what she does with that one.
True.
Yeah, I will say that it's pretty looking. I'm not sure what to make of these little butterfly clips. It's hard to tell exactly how big they are. Yeah, they look like they could be super tiny. And if they are, then I could probably manage because I don't have sausage fingers, but...
They are super tiny. Paper clips are I was about to say they're about the size of a paper clip. That doesn't help.
The size of a normal reference pair. So any other game that you had that wasn't this delicate butterfly flower thing you do? Yeah, delicate flower. Oh, it's funny because it's true.
Speaking of flowers and plants and nature, I played Parks.
Okay. How'd you like Parks?
It's basically Takedo.
Oh, I love Takedo.
You have a trail that's randomly generated. You have 2 hikers, and you can move up this trail. You cannot go on the same space as anybody else unless you use your campfire, which you can do once per season, and you can never move backward. It's a matter of debating whether you want to jump further ahead and lose out on these spaces to get the nice stuff, or trail behind and get a lot more.
I really love that mechanism where you can just go as far as you want, but you may not want to.
It's a simple, nice mechanism. I never find it terribly interesting.
Does this game have you, collecting sets for its victory point conditions? Because I'm not sure what the advantage of jumping ahead is. I see the cards are very pretty.
Along this trail, you're collecting resources. Those resources can be sun, mountains, trees. I don't know the logic there quite, but at the end of the trail, you have a few different options. One of those options is to visit a national park. So if you've seen enough trees and seen enough mountains for one of the 3 available parks, you can visit that park, and you get points for visiting parks. You also get points for taking pictures along the way, which you have to spend resources to turn them into pictures. And you have individual goals that are secret objectives that give you points at the end as well.
So it's basically like a Rondell set collection game.
Yeah. Well, it's not really set collection, but you're gathering resources to turn them in for points, basically.
Set collection?
No.
Can you turn one resource in?
Anyways.
Win one for me.
It has very good presentation. There's good art on the cards, and there's 5 different kinds of wooden bits, which should look pretty spiffy to me.
Yeah. So would you recommend Parks, Nathan?
If you like Takedo, yes. If not, get something else. If you don't like Takedo, you're not going to like this.
Do you like Takedo?
Not really. I found it bland.
Yeah, I like Takedo. I think that's a good game.
It was interesting. It was a nice, pleasant game. I didn't find it terribly fun or exciting.
Where can you go on the most awkward vacation ever? Takedo.
Takedo isn't a vacation. It's more like a sabbatical.
Yes. I'm going to need to race to the end and collect all these little murals and stuff and swim in spas with monkeys. Making it sound bad, but it's a good game. Anyway, so Nathan, any other points of interest at Granite State Con?
Another game I played that has such a generic name that I'm having troubles finding it in BGG. Oh, there it is. The City.
I'm going to now go looking for this game because this game sounds horrible to find. It's simply called The City?
Yes, that's the entire title, no subtitle, just The City. See if you can find it. This time, yeah. 1,000.
Living in the city.
Oh, I might get copyright infringement.
Yeah, better not put that in there.
We can put a little tiny bits of it.
City of Kings. We have Carcassonne, the city. Oh, I found it. The city. I win.
5 points for Jim.
That was really hard. That thing looks awful.
Yeah, start talking about it. I haven't still found it.
Designed by Thomas Lehman, designer of Race for the Galaxy, who apparently did not learn his lessons about iconography.
No, he did not.
Okay, yep, found it. 2011. Aggregate score of 6.5, ladies and gentlemen.
Iconography for this one, it took a minute to get around, but there's not that much of it that was terribly difficult. This one was manageable. There's definitely a few that we had to stop, look up. Oh, we were doing that wrong because we didn't understand what the iconography meant, but...
Oh, so you're playing Race for the Galaxy. Oh, no, it's the city.
So this is basically a combo building card game. You're building your little city by playing cards. You're spending cards to be able to play the cards. Various cards increase how much you draw each turn. or how many points you get each turn. A lot of them tie together. Some of the cards have prerequisites, so you can only do them if you have this other card. But it gives you enough different options usually for the prerequisites, so there's usually like 3 or 4 things you can build that would allow you to do this other thing, so you have a decent chance of getting what you need to actually use that card. There are some of the cards that score for the symbols you have. There's some of them that scores for the symbol that everybody has, and that can be a little confusing which one you're doing.
This does not seem like it's worth $50.
$50?
Yeah, I think it's out of print. And the art looks a little funky.
I'd say 10, 15 would be the max for this game for me.
Yeah, I think that's what it's supposed to be.
So looking at this game, I see that it's been re-implemented by Jump Drive. If it's out of print, it's been re-implemented as a space theme under a different title. BG has this categorized as a family game and only gives it a weight of 1.5. From your description, it doesn't sound like a light game. Like it's a combo-driven card game. How can that be light? I mean, I guess it's possible, but...
Jump Drive's rated at 2 weight, so it's probably more in the Jump Drive area. And it was pretty simple.
Well, there's a lot of repeat cards, and the combo building is very basic, so it's, I have this card, I get extra if I get this card. There's nothing really more complicated than that.
Okay. It's not combos per se, it's synergies, and I want to call it like a draft, but probably the game doesn't involve any drafting, so...
No, there's no drafting in this. It's the same mechanic as Race for the Galaxy. You're drawing cards each turn and using those to spend cards. It does take out the role selection from Race for the Galaxy, and that's part of what simplifies it, and there's far less variety in the cards and a lot less, almost no text.
Fair.
Yeah, sounds like Jump Drive. Jump Drive didn't really have any combo-y things in it either. And it was more hand management than anything else in that game.
Yeah, Jump Drive is weighted at 2, and that game is in the strategy category compared to that other game's family category.
I did play 2 games I didn't like.
I mean, if you want to bash games, I'll take it. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, they had a free-to-play, and that's part of the reason why I played the city. And they actually had some really good games, the play-to-win, rather. Tapestries, they had For Sale, which I wanted to play, never got a chance. But one of the ones I played for the free-to-win was Second Chances. I had no clue what this was going in. I read the rules and said, I don't want to play this. I already read the rules. It takes 15 minutes. Why not? I'll play it. It's basically a flip and right. Flip 2 cards. You choose one of them to draw. If you can't fit either of those shapes into your grid, you can flip one more card that is unique to you that only you can use. If you can't draw that, you lose. That's the entire game. It was simple, stupid. Second Chance.
So that sounds a lot like Cartographers, only Cartographers sounds like a much better game.
Cartographers is a much better game.
There you go.
I own Cartographers, and it is a flip and right, and it does involve Tetris and Tetris-like shapes, because some of the cards have shapes that are only 2 squares big, and some of the cards only have shapes that are like 5 squares big on them. This one just sounds weird. Like, are you trying to do anything with these shapes besides squeeze them onto your scorecard? Do they interact with any way, or are they different colors and they do stuff? And
Nope.
all right. Yeah.
It also didn't help that it comes with these pencils, but the pencils that had in this conventions copy of the game were so dull you could not write with them.
So is that the game you won? Did you win any games?
I did not win any games. I bought a lot, but I didn't win any. I'm really happy with some of the ones I bought.
Well, hold on. He walked away with one of the Grail games.
What?
Just one?
Well, the other ones I really like, but one of them's the Grail game that I've always wanted to have. What do you think it is? I mean, Dan won't know, but what do you think it is?
Rex?
Yes. But now I'm going to have to hunt down a copy of Dune and see if I can trade you.
So you managed to find a copy of Rex, the old FFG re-implementation of Dune, right? Mm-hmm. Taking place in the same universe as
Twilight Imperium.
That's definitely a something, yeah.
Yeah, and I got it for like $35 used, so I'm really happy with that.
Oh my gosh. Wait, hold on. Stop this podcast. It's like $219.
That was a Grail game for me, for sure. Another Grail game I got was Merchants of Venus. I think I also got that one for $30.
Did you get the more recent Fantasy Flight printing, or?
Yeah, sorry, it is Fantasy Flight.
The Merchants of Venus, the older one, is really old. That's, 90s, right? Or maybe even a little earlier, but 90s at least.
It's an Avalon Hill game. It's archaic almost. Merchants of Venus is actually a previous own for me.
Oh, okay.
And I had the Fantasy Flight version.
Went out of print.
You got a good Stonemaier game, too. That was Euphoria.
Oh, yeah, Euphoria. Yeah, I've been wanting to play that one for a while. It's a nice dystopian future, worker placement, Euro. I got Keyflower.
Flow. You got Keyflow.
Oh, Keyflow. Sorry. Yes, Keyflow.
That's a drafting game.
Dan will be excited that I got Grifters.
Did you play it all? Did you play it all?
I've not played any of these yet.
The game is so good. It's more good than it needs to be.
You keep saying that. I have to play.
Like, it's a small box game. And normally you're like, oh, this is good for a small box game. You don't even have to say that for Grifters. It is just good. Period.
I got Gizmos for the lighter crowd.
Fun game. It's a streamlined game. It's a really good engine building game. I will play it any time. It's one of those games that's good. It seems perfect in every way, but I'm not like crazy to play it. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense.
You know, I don't think I would have got it if I was paying full price. Because it was used and inexpensive, I thought it was worth picking up.
If I got Gizmos for one reason or another, I'd probably keep it. It's good. I think that's an awesome entry-level game. Like, if you just have a group of people that played Monopoly and that's all they ever played, that's a good game to get them in. Super easy to teach.
So that's what I got from the used game sales. I'm excited about a lot of those, especially Merchants of Venus. I can't wait to try that. Rex might be hard to get to the table, but I really do want to play.
I can watch after it for you.
I find it hard to get big enough group for that kind of game.
I'll definitely play it with you. Yeah, you could bring it and play it at Sabracon.
My local store had a setup there. One of the things I bought, I desperately needed, because Gloomhaven is really difficult to organize.
Did you get a broken token insert?
It wasn't broken token, but I got an insert for Gloomhaven.
Do you like it? Did it work out well?
Haven't put it together yet. I'll have to let you know once I put it together, but that's one of the bigger reasons I haven't gotten the Gloomhaven to the table much, because keeping that game organized, finding everything you need, not just for setup, but in the mid-game, finding all the cards you need and getting it out, it's a headache. I love the game, but I'm just hesitant to get it out because of that.
Yeah.
The other thing I got that I've already started playing was Clank Legacy.
Oh, that game I really, really want to play.
I'm enjoying it so far. We've only done the first scenario, or first mission. So it's got a little bit beyond normal Clank already. A little bit of story starting. I'm very hopeful where it's going to go and how it's going to expand. But it does seem very promising so far.
Alrighty then. I like Clank.
And I love Legacy.
Sounds awesome.
So that was the games I played for Granite Gaming Summit. There was a few others, but not worth mentioning.
So that's awesome. So we're going to go ahead and move on to less exciting things that Dan and I did.
Well, we didn't go to any big conventions, but maybe next time we'll talk about CosCon, right?
There you go.
This past weekend, as part of Board Game Club at the store, we got Clank in Space to the table, and we played Dinosaur Island. These are both games that have been in my collection for a while. They're among me and my brother's favorites, I would say. For Clank in Space, we're just playing base game. I have not bought into any expansions. It's still really solid. We had a pretty interesting play session where Ken grabbed a relic and then died before he left the command module. I picked up a relic the turn after he picked up his. So I'm lagging behind him in a turn, and then I see him die, and I'm like, oh my god. Because in two-player, when someone's out of the game, on their turn, they take 6 cubes out of the bag as an extra boss attack. I'm like, oh my lord, I have to book it back to the cargo bay or die trying. So, Ken was definitely not scoring that game, and there's a good possibility of me not scoring, too, to be perfectly honest. And I died in the cargo bay. I died 2 rooms into the cargo bay. So I managed to actually score some victory points and win that game. But it was close. At the end of the game, there were literally 6 cubes left in the boss bag. And 4 of them were assassin cubes.
Now, I will say, Clank I like is a push your luck game. But Clank in Space, I think, is a lot more tension. You can die a lot easier in Clank in Space than in Clank. Personally, I think Clank in Space is much better. What do you think?
I've only played regular Clank, I think, once. And I own Clank in Space, so I've obviously played it a number of times. My preference is in space, not only because of the theme, but because the game's got a meteor arc. You can't just dash into the command module where the artifacts are, grab one and leave. You have to visit the other modules to hack terminals to get the command code. The boss marker goes up when you finish that command code and also when you take the relic, making the escape more dangerous than the entry. And you're absolutely right. My brother did not in this play, but he sometimes enjoys pushing the bill and building a high clank deck. A high clank deck in Clank in Space can work, because cards that give you clank have so many more symbols on them. You have these super powerful turns. But it's a high risk, high reward strategy. Mm-hmm. You kind of need to do your thing very, very quickly, or else you're going to die.
Yes, one thing I already noticed with the Legacy version is it does seem like it's much more likely to die in that one, but they don't punish you as much because as long as you got a relic, you score points.
Interesting.
The game we played so far, everybody died. Nobody made it out. And I got the impression that's going to be the norm.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. That's for sure.
And if you watch Acquisition Incorporated, it does seem to fit. You watch these shows, it's like, it seems very unlikely that they're going to get out. Usually they do, but it seems very unlikely.
So I want to talk about Blood Rage Digital.
Blood Rage Digital? I'm sorry, is this something new, or...?
Well, if you back the Blood Rage Digital campaign, you got access to the beta.
Okay.
And it is 100% a beta. I have crashed it like crazy. I've played 3 games so far, and they've all crashed. So they got some work to do.
Is it player versus player asynchronous?
I couldn't get it to connect right to their server. So basically, they had AIs that I could play with.
Okay.
And I set all the AIs up to hard, because why not? And I set myself up on there, and then I played against the AI. The map's a little goofy. It's really hard to see like where Ragnarok is, because it makes little glowy things around each of the stuff. It's hard to see where the other players have their stuff because everything's like the same colors. If you get to the 20-point mark on any of the stats and then you do something that raises the stat again through pillaging, the game freezes. If you do too many like interactions in combat, I froze the game there too. I think it could be solid. I just had a lot of freezing. It's sort of disheartening when you can never finish a game.
I mean, I had some problems too, but I don't know how hard we can really be on it since it is...
It is a beta, yes.
They definitely have put a lot of emphasis on encourage people to go to the forum and talk about all the problems they have. And I've actually read through a lot of the comments, and there's a lot of good suggestions and a lot of things that hopefully they listen to. But yeah, there's some potential there. There's definitely a lot of visual stuff that needs to be worked out to make things more obvious. There's definitely some glitches in the game, but it is Blood Rage.
Yeah, I think it'll do well. And most of the stuff I was talking about, I was going to post it on the forum, but I think everything's already there that I talked about.
Yeah, like they also had a card mechanic issues. Like sometimes certain cards are unplayable, even though they should be. You just you click on it, it's not grabbing the card.
Yeah, that part was awkward. Like I'm trying to pick a combat card. I'm like spending 15 minutes to just drag the card over. I'm like, please, this is the card. Take it. Or placing it, like doing the upgrades. Sometimes it's wonky with placing the upgrades on there. I also found that some of the abilities don't trigger right. The one where you get to repillage, sometimes it didn't come up with the option to repillage.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a work in progress. Thing sounds like it's earlier than a beta to me.
Yeah, I was just surprised because I haven't been able to complete a game that they didn't try that before they put it in beta. But you know, well, it is what it is. Maybe they had just to appease people. Maybe they put it up early. I'm not sure.
There's a couple times it hung and I had to pass my turn, even though I had stuff I should have been doing, and I was able to complete it that way. But if you go into it, you can change the resolution. It's a little easier to tell what's going on. They're also said they're working on a tutorial now, which I think will help a lot. As is somebody who's never played Blood Rage will not be able to play this at all.
I really wish they'd have an option where you can just turn off the 3D portion of it.
Yes.
I mean, they have a giant tree in the middle that covers everything. I'm like, I can't see anything. I don't know what's happening.
Well, that was one of the weird things. Like, if you change the resolution settings, it just makes it blurrier. They need to take elements out when they change the resolution rather than just making it blurry and harder to see.
Yeah, they got a ways to go, so it's fine. It's all fine. So I get to play Blood Rage Digital.
Okay. Sounds like an adventure.
It was adventure and frustration.
But we did get also physical components to go with that.
That's why I backed it. So the digital thing is just bonus.
What were the physical components you got from the campaign?
It was basically re-envisionments of the original Kickstarter extras, like Fenrir. We also got the Gods expansion out of it, which I didn't have yet.
It was basically a way of redoing the Kickstarter exclusives with trying not to make people mad. And then you got 2 or 3 extra monsters. I can't remember. You got some extra monsters.
The other game we played this weekend was Orleans. You wanted to hear about this, James. Orleans is a bag building game. They're cardboard tokens. They're representing various specialists. Game takes place in medieval France. You've got like monks and scholars and craftsmen and boatsmen and traders. And there's a central map of France that you've got this meeple-like thing moving around on, and you're setting up trade houses and you're collecting goods tokens. And all of this requires you to draw your workers out of your bag and then assign them to specific actions to move around the map and set up your trade houses and recruit more people. That's very important, actually, because the bag builder, so you want to recruit the people that you're going to use to get your victory points, however that is. So this is only the second or third time, I think, that we've gotten this game to the table. It is relatively new. It's only new to us, this year, because I think I got it over the holiday season. But it's definitely very solid, in my opinion, and the game's got some intricacies to it. There's so much in the game that encourages you to build those trade houses and go up the development track, because at the end of the game, you take the number of trade houses you build and the number of citizen tiles you've acquired, and you multiply it by where you are on the development track. The development track goes up to 6. So even with a modest number of trade houses, you can get 30 points that way, which is a lot because our scores have been hovering around the 100-point mark. With one exception. My most recent game, I scored almost 150.
Wow.
Yeah, and I can't even tell you how I did that. I did max the development track. I got 5 houses on the table, so there's 30 of my points there somehow. I ended with a lot of money. I remember that much, because leftover money is just victory points in this game. So you want to collect a little bit of coinage. You want to prevent yourself from having to pay coinage. There's various event tiles that have to make you pay, these tiles that represent resources and or money. So you want to get the right kinds of resources so that you're discarding tiles that are worth not as many victory points to these events. You're going up on a track, too, for all these different types of recruits that you could take. So, the knight track allows you to draw more people out of your bag, and the craftsman track gives you these technology tiles, which cover a space on your board and make it so that that action takes less workers for the rest of the game for you, which is pretty amazing. The merchant track allows you to go through these stacks of additional actions and then add them to your personal supply. And that's actually super interesting, because those additional actions that the game provides you with can really give you a strategy for the whole game. It wasn't my most recent play, but I think the last time I played this game, I found a tile that was just used 2 workers, and whenever you activated the tile, you collected a cheese. A cheese is a good that's worth 2 victory points at the end of the game. So every single round, I was trying to make a cheese. I was just trying to churn it as much as possible.
Yeah, it looks like there's a lot of different strategies you can have in that game.
Yeah. It's definitely a midweight Euro in that there's a couple different ways you could take it, and you kind of have to focus just a little bit. The good thing is that you can focus, because you get to pick what tokens to add to your bag. And then there's even a deck thinning mechanism, so you can remove tokens from your bag if you're I want to go up the knight track, so I'm drawing at least 7 tokens on my deck, but I don't need 4 or 5 knights or however many that gives me. So I'll send 1 or 2 to the beneficial deeds board, removing them from the game. So now I've just got the 2 or 3 that I desperately need.
I don't know. I like the bag building concept. I like the idea of being able to streamline it too. And the game looks really good too.
I'm impressed with it so far. It's probably not going anywhere, so hopefully we'll get it to the table one of these days.
I played a lot of smaller games all week, so it's the ones I talked about before, but that Blood Rage Digital was new. I do have high hopes for it, as long as they fix what people are posting. Should be great.
Have you still been playing Arboretum? Is it still doing good stuff for you?
I like Arboretum a lot. 2 of my daughters do. My wife does not like it, and my oldest daughter does not like it.
So mixed bag among the collective, but overall a good response?
Yeah. I really like it. I think the idea is really neat, doing the collections of the trees and trying to do them in sequential order with the same ones, but then being able to have to have the highest number of that tree in your hand at the end of the game to be able to even score it. It's really good.
It's one of the few very successful, intense strategy games that is still very short.
Yeah, it only takes like 15, 20 minutes to play.
I did also play another new game, Chronicles of Crime.
Oh, okay. So how did this go down?
So I played the first scenario, which is a 3-part scenario, and it's an app-driven game where you're going to the crime scene, inspecting the crime scene, looking for clues by picking up your phone and actually physically looking around with your phone in your hand to see what you can find. And then you have various cards that have like categories of items, and you can scan those cards. And if you found that item, it'll say, oh yes, this is here, and this is what this is. This is what it means for your case. And then you go to various locations by scanning QR codes and talking to people and asking about the crime. One of the cool little elements is time is passing. The more you question people, the more you go from one location to another, the more time you pass, and things can happen because of that. Somebody who was alive you talked to earlier, if you don't do things perfectly, that person may end up being dead next time you go to see them.
I hate when that happens.
Kill all the witnesses.
I can't go into too much detail because I don't want to spoil it, but we definitely had a scenario that we did something that was really good and then realized, oh, if we hadn't done this, the game would have killed this person. And we would have lost a lot of information, not to mention this person be dead, and we might have not arrested all the right people.
Okay.
So that was the great part of it. That mechanic I think is clever and interesting, but it falls into the hole of a lot of these information sorting games, like Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective and similars, where this is essentially a one-player game that other people can participate in. And you are limited in a lot of ways because all you can really do generally is just scan QR codes, so you can't necessarily ask all the questions you'd want to ask. That's a little frustrating at some points. And you can keep going trying to solve the case as long as you want. You have to decide when you want to end it and try and solve the case. There's a lot of uncomfortableness when you're like, okay, should we just solve the case and maybe get this wrong, or should we get some more information? And sometimes you just end up blindly asking questions, hoping you get that last little piece of information.
That doesn't sound too good.
Yeah, I was not terribly thrilled by this. Great concept, not as fun as I was hoping it'd be.
Did the app and web integration work out as expected?
Yes, it did. The only thing is, I said it was it did somewhat limit the kind of questions you can ask, because you can only ask this person or about this object. You can't designate what kind of questions you want or how you want to frame the question.
That's fine though, because it's not an RPG.
Right.
Yeah, if you want that kind of flexibility, that's sort of the realm you'd have to go to.
It's just been overhyped. And I think I might have enjoyed it more if my expectations wasn't so sky high on this one.
I'll admit it's a super cool game concept, like Detective and Chronicles of Crime. This is something that didn't exist before, and we've got at least 2 examples of it out there. They're crossed between modern board games and old style murder mysteries and maybe a dash of escape room. I don't even know what they put in there, but it's certainly unique.
There's been a few other games that did similar stuff, but not quite the same. This one's unique because of the way it integrates the app and the fact that things can change. Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, same style of game, but there's no interaction. You're basically just reading a book.
Fair. Well, shall I talk about Dinosaur Island?
Oh yeah, I want to hear about that.
Okay, we do want to hear about that. All right, so today, me and my brother played Dinosaur Island. So in Dinosaur Island, you're building a dinosaur theme park. You're channeling John Hammond and building dinosaurs for good or ill. The game is actually pretty elaborate in its setup and components. Each player has 2 boards. One board holds specialists and workers and keeps track of your current supply of DNA, which there's 6 different kinds of DNA, and you have to spend DNA in various amounts to make more dinos. You have to assign workers to various buildings to make dinos, or refine DNA from basic to advanced, or to improve your security, which is pretty important, or to upgrade paddock sizes so that your pens can hold more than 1 dino figure, miniature, meeple, whatever. The game has very variable game setup. You get to pick a length, short, medium, long, and then you pick a number of scenario cards or objective cards. So we were playing with 4, with 2 players, which is one more than the game book recommends, but we wanted a slightly longer game. And the game ends as soon as all the objectives have been met except one. So if 3 out of the 4 objectives have been met by at least one player, that triggers the end of the game. You play to the end of the round, and then you just count final scoring. There's 4 different phases to the game, too, because in the first phase, you're playing scientist tokens, and your scientist tokens can do things like claim a dinosaur recipe, puts it into your park as an attraction. There's no dinos in it yet. You have to build them later. And you can increase cold storage, which is like the maximum capacity of your DNA. And there's a dice drafting mechanism. Everyone, you draft dice, and the dice you draft basically give you DNA to add to your piles. There's a lot of dice in this game. There's like 8 to 10 dice, and you only play with 2 per player plus 1. So there's some variability because the dice are all different.
So you might have some dinosaurs not in it?
Well, no. The symbols are different, but all the symbols just represent the 6 different kinds of DNA. There's 2 dice that have a very special symbol on it. One is a free paddock upgrade, and the other one is a free extra worker, like permanently. And then you go to a market phase, and the market phase is where you buy upgrades to improve your labs or recruit specialists, or you buy a park attraction. And everyone gets 2 market actions to buy things and add to their board. And then there's phase 3, which is just taking your workers and activating your own personal board to make the dinos or refine the dinos or improve your security. And then there's park management. Each player has an excitement value. Your excitement value is determined by basically the number and kind of dinosaurs you have in your park. And then you draw that many meeples blindly out of a bag. The meeples come in 2 different colors. So gold meeples are good patrons that will pay you ticket sales and also earn you victory points. And then there's also a number of pinkish hooligan tokens, which will not pay you ticket sales, go into your park, eat up space so that the patrons can't be at your rides to score victory points, and are just generally bad news for you. So mitigate those guys if possible. Of course, the coolest part about the game is that people die, right? Just like a real Jurassic Park game, which this is definitely not, legally distinct and all that. But like, as you make dinosaurs, your threat goes up. And based on the dice that are not picked by the players in round 1, you might have additional threat on top of that. And if the threat exceeds your current security level, then dinosaurs have broken out of your park and eat people or trample on them. And you lose a certain number of patrons, which means you did collect ticket sales from them, but you don't score victory points from them. And you actually score negative victory points for the people that were trampled this way, which is actually relevant because manipulating first player, the person who's last on the scoreboard is always first player for the next round. So you can actually explicitly run a dangerous park to always be first player.
So I thought the most exciting part was first player marker.
You thought the most exciting part was the first player marker?
Yeah, the slap bracelet.
Oh, okay. We don't have the deluxe copy of the game, so we just have a cardboard token. The Kickstarter version came with a slap bracelet.
Didn't slap bracelets get banned in the 80s because people were getting hurt by them?
Yeah, that's the other thing about this game. The cover is this, oh my god, there's a giant purple dinosaur on it, and it's neon colored.
Pink monstrosity.
And I know we don't know what color the dinosaurs were for real, but
they weren't that color.
They weren't that color. The game goes out of its ways to be like 80s-tastic to an almost obscene degree.
Yeah, it always reminds me of Far Cry Blood Dragon. Over-the-top 80s neon pink and purples and vomit. I don't like the cover of this.
Fortunately, it's just the cover art. The interior art, the park attractions, and like pictures of people on the specialist cards is really the only interior art. I guess the pictures of the dinosaurs on the attraction tiles that you can get are all pretty subdued compared to that. Most of the dinosaurs are greenish or brownish, but they do add like pink frills or maybe purple highlights to make it mesh, but it's not in your face screaming color. I won today's game, by the way, by 1 point. 1 point.
Hey, still a win.
Thank you for listening. If you have any feedback for us, feel free to visit us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or Board Game Geek Guild 2989, or our website at tabletopgamingguild.com. And don't forget to like, follow, and or subscribe. Tabletop Gaming Guild is a product of Tabletop Gaming Guild, LLC. All rights reserved.